Hi guys, Tigger here with a new video. In this video, we will talk about Enhancement Shaman in PvP for 10.1.5. It will be a somewhat of a updated guide because I did a guide in 10.1, but I feel like there's a lot of things that I actually changed and I wanted to update that guide ASAP. So we're going to talk about stats, embellishments. We're going to talk also about the 4-set. Do you want to go for the 4-set or not? We're going to talk about also the build that I'm running right now. There is little to no variation, but there is some variation here and there, so I'm going to discuss about it as well. I'm going to talk about really quickly the place of in Soul Shuffle, like Enhanced Shaman. What's up with that? 2v2, 3v3 really quickly. Also a bit of RBGs because I did also a bit of RBGs with the Enhancement Shaman to have some info about Enhancement Shaman in RBGs. I did see some, but it's not really the most popular spec, so I'm going to also say that in that portion. We're going to talk really quickly about the rotation. Again, you just have to hit what is lighting up, but in general, we're going to give you the game plan that you should follow to win games. Really quickly, Enhancement Shaman, how is it? Currently, I think Enhancement Shaman is not that bad, in a bad spot. I think defensively, we are still in a very bad spot. I think we are very killable. We have tools to actually escape death with, for example, Burrow. We have also good self-heals, although that self-healing is still not like incredible in Soul Shuffle. In 3s and in 2s, it can actually mean something. Also in RBGs, your self-healing is very good. So if you have like 1v2s or 1v1s, you generally will not die if you're playing it correctly. I think in general, Enhancement Shaman is in a good spot, but I think they kind of need a rework still to make sense, like at all times, and not only whenever we are actually good at the game currently. Now let's talk about stats really quickly. First and foremost, 2-set or 4-set. I've tested 4-set, also discussed with multiple people about 4-set. I think 4-set is just not worth it. They nerfed it a bit too much in PvP. They nerfed it considerably since the 10.1 patch where I discussed the 4-set. So you want to go 2-set, and you want to take the helm, and you want to the head, and you want to take the legs because they have the best stats, which is haste versatility and haste mastery, which are those two stats you want to go for. I have still shoulders, I need to replace it, but it's haste crits, so it's not that bad. But I should replace it really quickly. Currently, I'm playing with a mix of haste and mastery, so we have more haste than mastery, but mastery scales pretty well. But if I change my shoulders, I will get like the ideal stats for my mastery. You really want to have like 21% haste, and you really want to have like around 45% mastery, even a bit more if possible, because it gives you a lot of like those resets from Stormbringer, because every time you're going to use a special attack, it's going to reset the remaining cooldown on Stormstrike, and also causing your Stormstrike to do more damage, which is also quite nice. And also the damage that you're going to do is going to be increased for Fire, Frost, and Nature because of Mastery, which is going to be quite nice whenever you get like those Ascendance procs. You're going to obviously going to light people up with lightning bolts. Lightning bolt is actually hurting a lot, and you should really consider like trying to spam it instead of healing. Healing is quite nice, but if you can actually do the damage for killing, I think it's still a better choice. We have still a lot of like a healthy amount of versatility and embellishments. I'm running the if an interrupt is used on you while you're not casting, become immune to crowd control interrupts and cast pushbacks. I do use hex a lot, and I try to also fake cast hex, because if they see you hexing in the target, they're going to interrupt you. If you can actually like sidestep and or stop the hex cast, and they interrupt you on the wrong time because they would not think that you're going to fake cast as a melee, you can actually be very proficient with your immunity and do then an hex, which is more likely going to be very useful in that match. So we're playing with a lot of mastery, and we have haste on a few of gear. automatically we're going to have a healthy amount for both. So those are the embellishments. We're playing also with the applying a loss of control effect or interrupt, gives you some primary stats, which is quite nice because you're always going to proc that anyways. So that's actually a good stat increase whenever you have, and whenever you have like the badge, like the insignia pop, I would say, and then you have like, let's say, your ascendance proc, you're going to delete someone. There is also a way where you can play with the badge. For now, I'm not playing with the badge, but I do prefer haste over crits. So that's also like a bit playing in my head. Like, do I really want to sacrifice my haste for the badge? If you can't do that, then you can control your burst a bit more with your Doom Winds, for example. Enchants, it's pretty basic, but we do go for Sophic Devotion. I have that Wafting Devotion, but I would recommend to go double Sophic Devotion instead of Wafting Devotion. I tested out. I don't really like that. At least it didn't feel that good. I prefer to go double Sophic Devotion. Of course, try to get all the enchants that you can as a enhancement shaman. It's pretty basic. Our mastery, we were taking mastery gems and just in general mastery, whatever. And that gem should be replaced, but I was very poor back in time. Now let's talk about the talents real quickly. This is my talent build. There's nothing really changing from 10.1 except that I'm removing 1 point in Legacy of the Frost Witch and put that Witch Doctor's Ancestry. And also I'm playing with Ice Strike, which I don't know why it's not bound. I'm playing with Ice Strike now to increase my Frost Shock damage, which is always going to be welcome because it is going to make me do a lot of damage in general. The Frost Shock, because of the mastery, is going to hurt, and sometimes it's going to be enough to kill people with it. We're playing with basically our nature spell, so we want Nature's Fury, but there are games where I'm removing those 2 points and I get like Cleanse Spirit if I feel like I'm playing versus a Resto Shaman that is going to Hex, and I can also play with like an extra point, for example, in Totemic Projection if I'm playing with the Static Fields Totem, which currently I'm not really playing that much. That's why I'm playing with double points on Nature's Fury. In Spec Tree, really quickly, nothing really changed. Like I said, I did remove the self-healing option with Refreshing Waters or Focus Inside. There are games where I prefer to play with that. But it's very hard for me to actually remove a point without feeling bad for it. There are games where maybe it's like we're playing melee cleave versus melee cleave, and I remove feral lunge and I get like a point into refreshing waters or focus inside. I could also go for swirling maelstrom, which is also quite nice. For example, to get those extra maelstrom weapons. But basically, this is pretty much the setup I'm always going to play, like no matter what normally, especially in soul shuffle. In RBGs, it's a bit different because you can actually do some great off healing for yourself, and that sometimes can just justify that point. We're not playing with Elemental Blast, unfortunately. I kind of like it, but you don't really have the points for it, and that's the issue we have with as Enhancement Shaman. We just have to spend a lot of points to get those juicy stuff, and removing a point to get the elemental blast is just not really beneficial most of the time. And also our lightning bolt is actually hurting a lot. Often than not, it's actually doing more damage than elemental blast. Elemental blast, whenever it crits, whenever everything is lining up, you can actually just do some juicy crits. You can play that, but again, you have to remove one of those points, maybe feral lunge, and then you can go for elemental blast, and maybe go for lava burst to get like 2 stacks of elemental blasts. But there are builds where you can play that, but for now, I'm not really playing that. We're playing with deeply rooted elements. There are games where I feel like the games are so quick that you can just play with ascendants. For example, if you're playing with prot paladins in soul shuffle, just go for ascendants and try to burst like one target down. Be sure to CC the queens. So whenever they put the queen on the ally that is in need, you can just kill it, or you can CC it, and then you can just go back to your kill target. Don't wait 10 seconds for nothing. You can actually just CC it, and you'll be done with it. In some games, you can also feel like, look, those healers are not really reactive, and you are going to pop ascendance. Let's say the games are quite long, and it's like 1.5 minutes inside the game. You can actually pop ascendance as the second go instead of like popping it right away. You can pop it right away, but often than not, they have the defensives. What you can do is actually like do a Doom Winds, for example, go, or you do a Sundering go because you have like your 2 set, which is going to give you Mastery, Sundering, and then Heroism, for example, and you're going to try to get some CDs, and then on your next go, you can Doom Winds Ascendance with a Heroism if you have it, or Sundering, and you can just like then blow up someone. It's a lot of mind games. It's also a bit greedy because some games you can have multiple procs of deeply rooted elements, which can add up and actually just makes people like blow up. But I think the main problem I see is if it was a 2-minute CD, I would take Ascendance every single time. But it's a 3-minute CD, and if you actually use it and it gets wasted, which is often the case because you're CC'd or whatever, I think it feels bad. So that's why I'm playing deeply rooted elements most of the time. Again, Thorium's Evocation, very simple. If you're doing wind strikes, whatever your ascendance, it consumes up to 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks to discharge a lightning bolt. So it's actually very nice because you can just basically wind strike, 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 and basically just delete someone. Of course, it feels bad whenever you're proccing it and someone CCs you. Well, that just is what it is. But whenever you proc it and you're like in Doomwinds with heroism, it's the best feeling you can have. You're basically going to 100-0 someone on a like on the whim, right? That's the issue. Like some people think that Enhancement Shaman is OP because it gets procced and they get deleted, but they don't notice the proc or they don't notice the go from a Doomwinds or whatever, and they don't CC the Enhancement Shaman. Those things can happen. The reason why I'm not playing with Legacy of the Frost Witch with 2 points anymore, and I took 2 points in Witch Doctor Sensory. Again, it's quite nice to have more Maelstrom weapon stacks, but also the CD reduction on Feral Spirits is also quite nice. You have Feral Spirits pretty much like 80% of the time uptime, which is going to add you some physical damage with Feral Spirits. It is nerfed in PvP. It's so annoying, but it just is what it is. There are matches where I would like to play without it, and I would go for Elemental Spirits or Primordial Wave. The issue with Elemental Spirits is if it goes on Frost or Fire, I am actually doomed because I'm only doing nature damage or physical damage. So I feel like it's not that good and the value is not there. But Primordial Wave is a really good way to do and to deal a lot of damage. It is nerfed in PvP. I think 75% of normal damage. It's like divided by 2, but it's still doing some respectable damage. And if you're doing a Primordial Wave while you are actually in Ascendance and you're doing a Wind Strike, it is actually going to blow someone up, and that's also very satisfying. But if you want to just not think and have just one build, just play this build, and it will be a correct build to play. Your Storm Strike and your Wind Strike is going to do some damage, so deal insane damage. Try to keep up Flame Shock on everyone because again, there is like a dispel protection. So if they dispel dumb, they can actually deal some good damage. And again, it's also augmented because of your mastery, so it's a good thing to have it all the time. Now let's talk really quickly about PvP taunts, but I already did it in the previous video. But in Temple 1, I actually played a lot with Stormweaver. Now I'm not really playing with Stormweaver anymore. I do feel like it's not as good as it was portrayed, and I feel like I need more PvP taunts. If I had like a 4th one, I would probably play with Stormweaver. But right now, there is no real way for me to use it without like gimping myself. So I'm playing with Ride the Lightning, does a lot of damage. It's really, really good and it's consistent damage, really. Shamanism is a perma pick. I love having a 20% haste buff on myself and my ally. You can see it as a mini PI, and it is actually a very mini PI. If you have a Devastation Evoker in your team, put it on him. He does a fire breath. He's going to one-shot someone. So be sure to do that as well. And that is the point where I change most of the time between grounding totem, burrow, and static field totem. I do like to play burrow. It's very nice to have immunity, and does also some good damage because you have a lot of physical modifiers. But grounding totem generally versus like classes is always a great pick. It's a 24-second CD, and it can be very annoying for a lot of people. Sometimes I cheese with Counter-Strike Totem if I feel like they're not really aware of the situations with totems. They can actually kill themselves with that. That's what I actually do with my Resto Shaman, for example. And there are a few things that you can play in RBGs, for example, Traveling Storms, very fun. They feel like they're safe because the Shaman is not near them, but then you're going to knock someone away from the warrior and make them just go in the abyss out of the storm, which is also always fun. Unleash Shield is nice because you can actually knock people out of the zones, for example. But it's not really that good in social fall because you don't want to get kited because of that. So I'm not playing with Unleash Shield. Those are the PvP talents I'm playing mostly. Season Wind's also very nice versus Destruction Warlock, and if you're the target, you're going to have a permanent 45% spell school damage taken reduction. But they are not dumb. They're not going to cast like 3 times Chaos Bolts and get interrupted 3 times in a row. So you can play that. Grounding Totem is always going to be a hard stop. So I don't know. However, you can actually just play without Ride the Lightning and go for Season Winds. And then you're like the one tanky guy against casters, which is also quite nice. Anyways, let's talk really quickly about twos. In 2v2, I recommend to play with a hybrid, like for example, Retribution Paladin. You can also play with a Fury Warrior. You can play with Shadow Priests, but hybrids are king with an Enhancement Shaman. You can play with a healer, but it's very dampening and you don't have a MS effect, so you're going to ultimately lose versus a lot of matches that you maybe would win with a hybrid. Be sure to always go for the healer if you're playing with a hybrid, so 2v2, 2 double DPS. Go for the healer and you can actually win games. If you go for the DPS, the healer will have a solution like most of the time. So, or you can have your Retribution Paladin always harsh the healer at the time you're going to one shot someone. It's very hard. I prefer to go for the healer. It's like reliable, and you do hex the DPS, for example, to get like some leeway. 3v3, I would recommend to play Turbo. I would recommend to play with a Windwalker, Turbo Fist, really. You can play with a Shadow Priest, but it's not that efficient. There are some comps that you can make work, but I feel like the best comps are still playing with a Warrior or with a Windwalker. You can also make it work with a Shadow Priest. You can make it work with maybe a Warlock, Demonology Warlock, that is, because you need the MS effect, but it's not very optimal. You can also play just Elemental Shaman. It would be probably better in that comp. But I prefer Turbo for Enhancement Shaman. I think Enhancement Shaman with a Warrior or Enhancement Shaman with a Windwalker seems better for me, at least, than a Mental Shaman with a Warrior or a Windwalker. In Soul Shuffle, currently we are quite good. We're not bad. We're viable, I would say. We're meta or we're not. It depends about who you're facing. You're very squishy. I think the ones that I hate the most are probably Demon Hunters, because they have a lot of things that can actually just ruin your damage, which is blur and darkness. And they can also glimpse away, which reduces a lot of damage. So if you're like in Ascendance, they glimpse away. It's really a shame to dispense a lot of their damage to them. I feel like versus classes you can do very well, but are again very dependent with your ally if they know how to play versus classes. But the one games that I really love to play are like the meat, where I can actually cleave with my Crash Lightning, do a lot of damage with my Frost Shocks, with my Storm Strikes, with my Ascendant Goes, if I have deeply rooted elements, for example. Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite nice. I think they could kind of need a rework still, but you can make it work pretty reliably as well. RBGs, my opinion is they are not really that viable because it's stoppable. Your healers should be very aware about having an enhancement shaman because we are a target most of the time. It's actually very hard to keep up a enhancement shaman in general. But if you actually have uptime and you have, let's say, an ascendance go, because you can play ascendance, but you can also just play deeply rooted elements. and do a lot of damage with your lightning bolts, you can actually do some great damage. Now the issue is survivability. I think just for simple that way, it just is viable but not meta. You can make it work. Not a lot of groups will invite you. You'll have to probably find a community or make your own groups to have a spot as an enhancement shaman. But I think it's quite fun, and you can make it work if you want to. It's a possibility. You're pretty much a team fighter. You can also just retake notes pretty easily because you have the tools for it. But it's very hard to actually like consistently win games as a enhancement shaman in RPG. Now let's talk about really quickly the rotation and tips and tricks, and then we are done. So pretty much you have to have your two Wind Fury and Flame Tongues up. Do not forget that. Sometimes you forget that and then you lose a game for nothing. And what you want to do is basically like uptime with your Flame Shock, Frost Shock, and of course, whenever you are ready to make a go, you can basically pop your Feral Spirits into a Doomlands with your what's called heroism, and you can do some great amount of damage. You see, like again, it's a PvP dummy, so it's not very accurate, but it's still there, and the damage is really nice. And like for example, now we have like our ascendants go, you can pretty much do a lot of damage. Try to keep up the Wind Fury totem. I know it's annoying, but it adds up. It's really good in general, and also if you're playing versus and with melees, it actually adds up very much a lot. Frost Shock whenever you can with the Ice Strike buff, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you kind of just hit what is lining up. So every time you have a Storm Strike ready, just do Storm Strike. Every time you can have a Lightning Bolt with 10 Maelstrom, try to expand that because it does a lot of damage. And try to use your Feral Spirits whenever you can, because it's then not wasted. Again, damage is really good. The issue is pretty much the uptime. They're going to see you, they're going to stop you pretty reliably with just a simple stun, simple fear, and you have to you can counter fears with tremor, but you have to see it coming, right? So you see, I'm going to show you the details, but it's very different in PvP because the damage is a bit lower. But Lightning Bolt, we crit for 200k. Unfortunately, we don't crit too much because we're not building crit, and building crit is not that good as Enhancement Shaman. Storm Strike does some okay damage. It actually does some good damage. I'm not going to lie about that. Wind Fury attacks, and in general, you're going to deal a bit more damage in PvP than that. Forked Lightning is doing okay damage. Storm Blast is the portion of Stormbringer. Whenever you're going to do a Storm Strike, it's going to add 25% damage of nature damage, actually. Your Spirit Wolves do some okay damage, but it's really low. Ice Strike can do some good damage, and your Frost Shocks can do some good damage. Sundering, you can use it as a CC option, but what I use is as a go option because it gives me 12% mastery in PvP. Whenever you have Ascendants, be sure to do your Wind Strikes. It's better to have your Ascendants from deeply rooted elements whenever you have Heroism and whenever you have Doomlands, because then the damage of Wind Strike will be through the roof. Also, you have to be lucky with the resets, but it is what it is. So that's pretty much it. For the guide, you have multiple ways where you can play. You can play full haste. You can even play full mastery. Personally, I prefer to play full haste, and right now my playstyle is haste with mastery, but I would recommend to play with haste mastery because then you will have some good lightning bolt damage. But I can understand that sometimes it feels a bit less smooth having no haste, because sometimes you have a lot of buttons to press, and GCTs being lowered is a good thing for Enhancement Shaman. But I can understand that, and depends about you. But personally, right now I play with half haste, half mastery, and it does really well for me. Like you see, I went to 1979. So this week I need to play a bit more now. I didn't really play too much World of Warcraft, but I wanted to make an updated guide for Enhancement Shaman. Some tips: try to heal your allies also. I know it's annoying to not expand the lightning bolt, but if you can actually do a big healing surge on your ally, it actually recoups a lot of the healing that is actually not done by your healer. You have all. I play with lightning lasso because I think it's a good option. You can also play without it, but I really like lightning lasso. It's really too useful to not play that in most matchups. In twos, I think lightning lasso is also very good, especially if you're playing with a healer. But if you're playing with a Retribution Paladin, you can double stun pretty much. But it depends about your play style, really. Yeah, Astral Shift really on demand whenever you feel like there's danger. There's also like a CD reduction. I do play with 60% reduction because I feel like I'm getting killed even through my Astral Shift. And if they actually hit me whenever I have that, at least it will be a useless go on me, for example. But that's pretty much the guide. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. Again, we have multiple guides. I want to try to make my guides a bit shorter. Like, for example, this one, instead of a 1 hour guide, I will make a 26-minute guide, for example. If you want to support the channel, you can also join the channel with the membership. It's a really there to help me, the creator. If you want to do a donation, that also is very appreciated. So I can upgrade a few things so I can actually do and make better videos. Of course, watching the whole video is also helping me a lot. So thank you, you guys that are watching the whole videos, and all the videos that are actually completed for you would be actually very nice for me. And also like the video for the algorithm, helps me a ton. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet. I know most of you guys actually do that. If you are, please do join the family. Although family is a bit cringe, I would say the team, the guild. Anyways, and yeah, I mean, it's all good. Thank you for watching, and be sure to stay safe. We'll catch you very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.